Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 96. 96, huh? Wow. 4 away from Daily Drop number 100. And for Daily Drop 100, I'm showing up with all sorts of stuff. I'm going to have a marching band. I'm going to have dancers. I'm going to have jugglers spitting fire, people on stilts. All right, literally none of that's going to occur. But it's pretty cool that we're going to be at 100 daily drops soon. That means 100 straight days, folks. 100 straight days of covering this story. 100 straight days of hanging out with you folks. And 100 straight days of doing our best to turn these predators into the prey. So tonight, all the hubbub that I see on the news cycle is about new pictures of Bill Clinton with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and they were on the flight with Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker that went to South Africa, and Miss Davies was on that flight as well. But we all know that Bill Clinton hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, and we all know that he was on that flight. So I think the most important thing to take away from that is that Miss Davies said that Bill Clinton was a gentleman on that flight, and he was very nice to be around, etc., etc. There's no evidence that Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, or Chris Tucker were engaged in any sort of untoward behavior on that trip, besides just enabling Jeffrey Epstein. And that's what we see with a lot of these folks, right? Just because they're pictured with these people does not mean that they're engaged in the trafficking ring. So the problem with the Clintons for me is that they keep denying that they were really close to Epstein, and it's obvious that they were very close to Epstein. Again, that doesn't make them part of his trafficking ring, but it certainly makes them enablers, right? So I'm not even going to bother reading those articles. It's just the same old stuff, basically. And we got to consider the source. It's the Sun releasing it today. And that's Rupert Murdoch's new American tabloid. And it's kind of like the Sun UK. And while the pictures are real and all of that, I just don't think it's going to add to the story. I think we all knew about that already. We all knew that Epstein was hanging out with Bill Clinton on that flight. And I think that if Miss Davies would have had something else to say, that Bill Clinton was some sort of monster or something, then of course I believe that we would have spent more time on it. But I think that it's just worth noting in a little blurb. It's not even worth a whole episode, to be honest with you. You see, I'm not a big fan of hatchet jobs, right? I'm not gonna hatchet job Clinton either. There's no point in that until the evidence comes out that Bill Clinton was involved in this trafficking ring. In my opinion, he is squarely we have to label him as an enabler at this point, and that's it. We don't, we can't go any farther than that. It's not what we think we know, it's what we can prove, as I always say on this podcast. And I'm not going to jump to the conclusions that Bill Clinton was involved in any of this stuff as more than an enabler until I have the proof that backs it up. And we can all have opinions on what we think. Did this person engage in these activities with Epstein, et cetera, et cetera? Of course, we could all have those opinions. But I'm not going to say for sure that Bill Clinton was involved in the sex trafficking ring, because there's no evidence that proves that he was. And you have Miss Davies saying on this flight how much of a gentleman he was to her, et cetera, et cetera. And now, remember, Shantae Davies was not underage on this flight either. She was like 23 years old, and she was not one of the underage trafficked girls. Now, who knows what's in the documents, right? We have no idea what's in the documents. And I hate to tell you, according to a judge today, or yesterday, from West Palm Beach, well, that judge is not going to release the 2006 grand jury documents that were requested. So we're going to read an article about that tonight, and the article is from the West Palm Beach Post. And the author of the article is Jane Musgrave. So we're going to jump into that and see exactly what this judge's deal is and why they made the ruling that they made, and what sort of where they go from here to try and get this stuff unsealed. Because as you well know, there are many different levels of our vaunted justice system, right? Where you can appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I would hope that that's what they would do in this case, because I think that the grand jury testimony is pretty damn important. And I think it's pretty damn important that we see what went on in that grand jury, and we see if there was any untoward behavior by the prosecution, because it certainly smells bad, right? It really smells bad what the prosecution was doing during this case. So, before we do that, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And on to the article. Like I said, the Palm Beach Post. Judge refuses to release records of Jeffrey Epstein grand jury. Author, Jane Musgrave. And again, make sure you go to the website itself. You give it a click. You go check out the pictures that they post and the hyperlinks, and it gives you a little bit more context. And, if you feel like jumping down the rabbit hole, well, that gives you plenty of options to do just that. West Palm Beach. Without evidence of criminal wrongdoing, a Palm Beach County judge said she won't release records from a 2006 grand jury hearing that ended with the indictment of suspected serial child molester, pedophile, suspected what? Jeffrey Epstein on a single charge of soliciting a prostitute. Unsealing the records would provide that evidence, right? Isn't that what they're saying? I don't understand why these judges are so adamant to not release records like this. The case is over. The victims in the case are not saying that they don't want the records released. Epstein's dead. Who's it going to hurt? Oh, I know. His co-conspirators, the people that all of these scuzzbags in intelligence and in the Department of Justice seem to be protecting for some reason. During roughly a half-hour hearing on Tuesday, Circuit Judge Krista Marx told a special prosecutor appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis that he provided no evidence to justify his unusual request to pierce the secrecy of the grand jury. So, this guy that was appointed by DeSantis shows up in front of this judge and has nothing compelling, all this evidence out there has nothing compelling, huh? Again, makes sense? M. Levering Evans, an assistant state attorney in Fort Pierce, said the Florida Department of Law Enforcement will interview Epstein's accusers and others to find evidence that will convince Marx to reconsider her decision. Wait a minute. So why didn't you do that previously? There is all this evidence. Why don't you just read James Patterson's book and you'll get all the evidence you need? I don't even understand what they're even talking about. You need more evidence? I'm sure these girls are falling over themselves. How many have we read about? How many have we read about that are willing to come out and speak against this, to say that this happened to them? And this judge says that they need to find more evidence? Okay. It was a bit of a long shot, and the judge shot us down, he said Wednesday. To determine if then State Attorney Barry Krischer handled the grand jury appropriately, state police plan to interview women who were in their teens when they claimed the millionaire financier, pedophile, lured them to his Palm Beach mansion for sex, Evans said. So, again, I'm kind of confused. All this evidence is already there. How many more investigations do they need to have? Why are there so many investigations? And who is investigating the investigators? Because the judge certainly doesn't seem to care that there could have been misconduct or wrongdoing here. Shouldn't the judge care about that? You would think, right? But no, some of these judges, we're sticklers for the law. We're gonna do it exactly like this, and that's it, because that's the way we read the law. Meanwhile, their judgment gets kicked up to an appeals court and it gets stomped all over. Hopefully that's what happens in this case. But they hoped the grand jury records would guide them. Any investigations begins with the gathering documents and then interviewing witnesses, he said. Since Marx rejected the request for grand jury records, the typical process will be reversed, he said. Again, can I give you some advice, buddy? Why don't you just read James Patterson's book and start from there? I'm sure they can help you out. I'm sure if you don't know how to do your job, maybe the investigative journalists will do it for you. Because this sure seems like a bit of laziness to me. The evidence is all there. Just go and talk to the girls. What's the big deal? Shouldn't have you talked to these girls before even going in? And then, shouldn't have you gotten sworn statements from them if they were willing to give them? I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not a legal guy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. But common sense certainly doesn't seem to be playing out here. Attorney Matthew Weissing, whose Fort Lauderdale law firm has pushed for justice for many of Epstein's victims, supported Evans' request. Longtime Epstein criminal defense lawyer Jack Goldberger attended the hearing. Shocking. Even in death, this Goldberger guy's protecting Epstein. This Goldberger guy is a sick dude, obviously, as well. Anyone who would protect Epstein, and I understand that he needs a defense team while he's on trial, of course. You got to do that. This is America. Everyone is entitled to a hearing and a defense, and everybody's entitled to defend their name. Now, after the fact, when Epstein's already dead and you're still defending him when you could just shut your yap, well, what does that say about you, Mr. Goldberger? Since Epstein in July hanged himself, allegedly, in a New York City jail while awaiting trial on dozens of child molestation charges, it is unclear who Goldberger represented. He wasn't immediately available for comment. Epstein's $577 million estate has been sued by more than a dozen women who claim the politically connected money manager, pedophile, molested them at his various homes, including his waterfront mansion in Palm Beach and his sprawling townhouse in Manhattan. The Palm Beach Post has also filed a lawsuit seeking to open the grand jury proceedings. It filed suit in November after its investigation revealed that while more than a dozen teens accused Epstein of sexual assault, only one 14-year-old girl testified before the grand jury. That isn't enough for the judge. You had all of these girls that accused him, but only one testifies before the grand jury. And that's not enough for the judge to say, this is a little weird. Let's open the records and let's see what the hell went on. But no, again, let's protect each other. She probably plays golf with this Krisher guy. They probably hang out. Their families probably eat together. All right, that. I don't have any evidence for that, but you know what I mean, right? These circles are very small. These people all know each other. That's how these deals are made in the back room between these lawyers. Sources said Krisher's top prosecutor undermined the girl's credibility by focusing on her MySpace pages instead of the trauma of being fondled by a man nearly 40 years her senior. Again, the MySpace page stuff really steams me up. What kid that isn't 13, 14, 15 years old isn't experimenting a little bit with life? Maybe they're having they tried some beer, they had a couple of cigarettes, they're saying edgy things to fit in with their friends, maybe they've had their first kiss or whatever it may be. Does that make them a liar? Does that make them unbelievable? Absolutely not. No way, no how. Both Palm Beach County State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg and Clerk and Comptroller Sharon Bach are urging Circuit Judge Donald Haffel to reject the newspaper's request. Both claim the paper has no right to obtain the grand jury records and reveal them to the public. Florida law says the records can only be turned over to attorneys and their clients for use in civil or criminal cases and for no other purpose whatsoever, they argued in court papers. Well, I could see that this could set a bad precedent, obviously, if the judge rules in the favor of the newspaper, but I don't see why he doesn't rule in the favor of prosecution or the people looking into what happened in the Epstein case. I could totally see him denying the request for the newspaper. Fair is fair, I get that. And I applaud, the paper for going after it. All right? I applaud them for doing that. But why in the world would the judge deny the claim from the people looking into how this was prosecuted in the first place? Don't you want answers? Don't you understand that people are demanding answers at this point? And you're going to be held accountable, whoever this judge is going to be held accountable by people in the media if the judge is not doing the right thing? And I don't mean the mainstream media, folks, but we're going to be talking about these people. We're going to be putting the names to these people. And these people are going to have to answer some questions, right? Because what the hell sort of decision is that? Again, maybe I'm completely off base, right? I understand not releasing it to the newspaper. I totally get that. But people that are looking into how it was prosecuted, I don't understand that. So if there's a lawyer out there that can explain that to me, shoot me an email. No hearing date for the newspaper's request has been set. Like the Post, Evans argued that the law allows the records to be unsealed if it would further the interests of justice. Typically, he said, judges release the records if there is evidence that someone lied. His office has successfully gotten grand jury materials by arguing that a witness committed perjury, he said. In order to unseal, she would have to see evidence of criminal wrongdoing, Evans said. Well, how about the prosecution going after these girls. That's not wrong. That's okay. The prosecution is supposed to be prosecuting their claim against the defendant, and instead they're jumping on board with the defendant, with the prosecuted, and hammering with the people who are being prosecuted and hammering the people who were assaulted. I don't even understand how that's even possible. How do these people keep their jobs? In addition to examining Krischer's handling of the case, FDLE is also investigating the way the sheriff's office handled Epstein. He was given liberal work release during the 13 months he spent in the Palm Beach County stockade. He was allowed to leave his cell 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, to work at his nonprofit Florida Science Foundation. Oh yeah, science, huh? It's seeding the whole entire population with Epstein seed so we could all be sick, perverted bastards? Yeah, great idea, old Jeff boy. Great idea, pal. A woman has filed suit in New York City claiming that she was a teen when she was flown here to have sex with Epstein while he was supposedly under the watchful eye of sheriff's deputies. Isn't that enough? How much more does this judge need? Epstein formed the nonprofit after he signed a controversial non-prosecution pact agreeing to plead guilty to 2 state prostitution charges. In return, federal prosecutors agreed to shelve a 53-page indictment they had prepared against him. While Krischer has steadfastly refused to talk about his role in the once secret accord, records show he helped broker the deal with Goldberger and then South Florida U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta. Krischer took the case to the grand jury in 2006 and obtained a single charge of soliciting a prostitute. Later, at the urging of federal prosecutors, he charged Epstein with soliciting a minor for prostitution, which forced Epstein to register as a sex offender. The crime was later wiped off the books by state lawmakers, who agreed minors couldn't be prostitutes because they can't legally consent to sex. I've been saying that forever. I don't even know how that was originally a law. When was that law put onto the books? The 1400s or something? I mean, talk about archaic. What is going on in Florida? Florida is an odd place, folks. If you live down in Florida, God bless. It's beautiful, beautiful beaches, but some of the stories I hear coming out of Florida, it's just a really weird, really odd place that I would not want to live. Now, don't get me wrong. Would love visiting down there. Miami's a beautiful city, but it's just a weird place for me. I don't know. I don't dig Florida really as a place where, I don't see Florida as a place where I could ever live. It's just an odd place. All the weird stories that come out of there. So there you have it, folks. This judge is not going to unseal this. Obviously these lawyers can, go up higher on the chain and appeal this ruling and see what comes of it. But I don't know. I'm not very confident that we're going to see anything in these from this case itself here. I don't think we're going to see anything from the grand jury testimony. I don't think we're going to see much at all. But I do think we're going to see stuff in that Ghislaine Maxwell against Virginia Roberts case. I think we're going to see a lot of records come out in that. We have January 16th is a trial date, I believe, and we should know a lot more after that date about the defamation stuff that from Virginia Roberts and Ghislaine Maxwell, that they're battling it out right now. Boys and Dershowitz, the whole battle royale. So we'll see a little bit of movement on the 16th, I'm guessing, on that. And then again, maybe not. With these court cases, you know how long the system takes for these things to wind their way through. It's like a clogged up sewer system most of the time. People get arrested and their case takes a year for them to go to court in some cases. It's just crazy. So who knows? We're definitely going to keep our eye on it. We'll have updates on this specific case, obviously, and we'll definitely keep our eye on what happens on the 16th. So if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And if you would like to help support the podcast, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link that is in the description link. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow morning with a morning update, and we will start all over again because you all know what time it is. The year 2020, the year 2020. This is the year that the predator turns into the prey.